Muted.
You're muted?
I'm muted. Now I gotta see if I can get my seat back.
Your seat has been...
I have cats. I don't think you can see them, but I have cats in my seat.
Whoops, there goes one.
I have one right here. He's literally in my seat. You know?
Yeah, you can see him. He's there. Muna's being perfectly fine. She's just catting.
Oh, such grumpy looks.
He is very grumpy.
Such grumpy looks.
I've been getting moved around all evening.
And I just want to lay down and be cool. Not care about the world. Just let me lay and cuddle and sleep. But your audience loves you, sir. Oh. All right.
And he has words for his audience, none of which are actually suitable to broadcast.
What did you just put on my pants?
But I hope everybody's doing well. Yeah, we are live now.
That's you, sir.
So I suppose I should actually say something.
I literally just let your mom know that we were going live.
Yeah, so there you go. But I hope everybody's doing okay. We are okay. I suppose it's now past the point we can't really use the excuse of still recovering from October, though it feels that way. Been kind of put through the ringer. I don't know, whatever bugs going around or something like that.
He brought it home this time.
Yeah, and sorry.
That's okay. He's the one that's got the the office job and a coworker that was hacking.
But as you do. So, anyways, we're here. We're here. And
I was able to get through a couple of scripts. We got this one done, and I got a Germany started, which will be our first script in December. And now I have to work on the Victorian, figure out what Victorian stories we're going to share this time.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, so we got our Christmas display up. The Skellies have decorated. And
yes.
Still decorating. But the display is up.
Yep. And I'm still working on getting the computer ready so I can actually chat with you all.
Good girl, baby.
Because that's half the fun in this, is actually being able to chat with you all. So, but yeah, so where have we been? What have we been up to? Actually...
Okay, so we have some new announcements. We have a pub crawl coming back.
It actually is this week.
Oh, God, that's right. It is this week.
Thursday.
You need to buy tickets.
So, we are going to be doing the Spirits and Spirits bar crawl of Carytown. Mm-hmm. And going to be featuring Revelry Experiences, Bryant's Cider, and Garden Grove. So, yeah, $50, and that does include a beverage at each location. So, go ahead, get your tickets. Going to be exclusive, if you will, limited to 15 tickets.
Yes. And
again, $50 get you an evening of strolling around Carytown with us with some spooky stories and a beverage at each location. And if you're not a quote-unquote big drinker, that is okay. Our first and last stops have non-alcoholic beverage or options. So yeah, so you can come on out and do that.
Mocktails, ginger beer, ginger ale, homemade ginger ale.
And even some light snacks at the last one, if you want to do that instead of a liquid refreshment. Mm-hmm. So yeah, all kinds of stuff there. And then Saturday, we got a couple of things going on. Saturday, we're going to be at the Virginia Comic Con up at the Raceway Complex. That is going to be, I think it's from 11 to 4, and then that evening we have our Ghosts of John Marshall House tour.
Yes, at 7 and at 8 o'clock.
Yep, so you can come on out, join us there for that special event. And then going fast forward a couple of weeks, December 13th, we have our haunted dinner at Patrick Henry's.
Yes, which is actually almost sold out, right?
It's about halfway. So, but yeah, tickets for that are moving at a pretty brisk pace. So, got a lot of special events coming up, and that is, of course, on top of our normal walking tours, which we are still offering. Going to offer them all year round. So, come on out, get spooky with us, just because Halloween is now a few weeks in the rearview mirror. We still have spooky stuff going on, and yeah, which I'm assuming is kind of what brings at least some of you here tonight. I mean,
Yes.
if you're here listening to us, we assume that you're here for some spooky stories.
Can you do me a favor and switch mine to the black? Because the white
Just
hurts.
take that.
Thank you. Sorry, battling a headache and bright white light hurts.
So, yeah, we have tonight... Oh, that is not the one I wanted. Tonight we have Haunted North Carolina, our neighbor to the south.
Yes.
So, as much as we have...
they used to live.
Yeah, we have a lot in common with North Carolina. I mean, it's just south of the border, the state border, and they're they got the coastline, they got the mountains, they got all kinds of stuff going on there.
Cities with history, culture, and
ghosts.
The ghosts.
So yeah, we are going to be talking about some of the spooky stuff just south of us in North Carolina.
And we have covered a few places in North Carolina before, including the first one that we're starting with. We're taking a trip back to Camp Lejeune because, we didn't cover it all first time. So we're bringing you the story we didn't do last time. Do we got comments already?
Yeah.
See?
So happy early birthday to Dana, and Lee was just up here having dinner, but Lee could not stick around, so Lee is now in the chat instead.
Yes. Asking me if I know how to make a Christmas stocking. The fine?
Yep. Oh, and Beverly is in the chat and also already has tickets to our dinner event.
Yes.
So looking forward to seeing you there, Beverly. And yes, Jeremy, we all know Christmas is in fact the real spooky season. It is certainly where it all started, and we will be touching on that not only at the Haunted Dinner event, but when we do some Victorian ghost stories on Facebook, right?
Yes, I just haven't decided which ones we're doing.
That's a few episodes down the road. So, but yeah.
Next episode I'm working on.
Yeah, but yes, lots of haunts, Beverly, lots of haunts at Camp Lejeune. And Alex, congrats on the pub crawl. What's on tap tonight? We have
eggnog.
It is eggnog season
and
whiskey. So yes, the whiskey is it's the stout edition of Jameson, right? Yeah. So yes, so about 2 parts eggnog, and it can't be just any eggnog. It has to be the Homestead Creamery eggnog.
It cannot be any other eggnog.
So 2 parts of that, 1 part of Jameson Stout Edition, and you have a very tasty beverage. Cheers.
There we go.
And Lee asks, are we talking about Southport? Because I have info. I don't think so. No,
Southport is not on this, so share the info for a future script, because I have a part 2 started.
Yeah, there's always a part 2, part 3, and beyond, because in any one of these episodes, there's a whole heck of a lot more than we can talk about in a single.
And I'd rather have more when I'm first doing my initial research than we need.
Yeah. So, you want to time in with Camp Lejeune?
You can.
Oh, I get to. Okay. All right. So, yes, this heavy hitter of the paranormal front, Camp Lejeune. So, we did talk about this again. It was in our Haunted Military Bases Volume 2 episode, which was actually just a few months back in June. So, you can go back, catch that. Camp Lejeune is so notoriously haunted that we only managed to touch on a portion of the spectral sightings there. And now we're ready to bring you some more spooky tales from this military installation on the North Carolina coast. So maybe it's in something in the water that leads to all these sightings, but there's definitely something in the air. Back in 2011, ghost hunters with the Southeast Paranormal Investigators Association descended on the USO there to investigate reports of disturbing appearances. And for reference, if you're not into military jargon or acronyms or anything, the USO stands for the United Service Organizations. They're actually a nonprofit that provides live entertainment to members of the armed forces and their families. So when you hear about like these Hollywood legends who made these overseas trips, such as Bob Hope, Marilyn Monroe, entertaining the troops, these were trips that were organized by the USO. Mm-hmm. So just for your reference. Now, in recent years, the USO down there at Camp Lejeune has seen some pretty dramatic upheaval. The organization's longtime home that we will be talking about as part of this episode opened back in 1942, but was closed in 2021 due to structural safety concerns. At the time of its closure, it was the longest-serving USO facility in the world, and despite the issues, the building still stands in downtown Jacksonville, the city that neighbors Camp Lejeune to the northwest. A new USO building has been opened on base, opened last year, 2023, allowing the USO to continue in their efforts at Camp Lejeune. Now, as for the original USO building, it is a historic landmark that's known for more than just being a favorite hangout of veterans, as many spirits also seem to call it home. Rumors of ghosts are so prevalent that the base organized a haunted kayaking event there. And in 2012, Camp Lejeune asked on Facebook if anyone had experienced paranormal activity there, and people responded with tales of disembodied footsteps, a little boy running through his reflection, and an invisible man crossing the road to the base, and more. Now, where do these spirits come from? Well, it is hard to overstate the importance and use of the USO facilities, particularly this one in downtown Jacksonville, when it was in its prime. During World War II, as many as 12,000 service members would visit there every month. And even in peacetime, the USO would be frequented by many veterans, some of them coming by every day to socialize and maintain a sense of community. Of all the people that came through, though, some of them would pass away there, and it could be argued that others would become so emotionally attached to the facility that they would return there in the afterlife. For many, the USO was effectively a second home. During the 1960s, there is record of at least one World War II veteran that came to the USO every day just to read the paper. But one day he did pass away while he was in the showers there at the USO. That said, many believe that he never stopped visiting. Later, in the 1970s, a Korean War veteran frequently visited the USO and even joked that he would haunt the place once he died. Not only did he actually pass away there, it is believed that he did, in fact, return to haunt the USO. In the building's years of service, several employees would not go into certain rooms of the center, especially the basement, which was ominously also known as the dungeon. A couple of employees outright quit their jobs after being alone in the basement for an extended period of time. What they encountered has yet to be put on record. It's more than just the basement, though. Paranormal activity extends to just about every corner of the center. There have been numerous reports of the lights being turned on and off by unseen hands, accompanied by sudden, inexplicable cold spots. One volunteer who had spent many years working at the USO had a reputation for always being helpful and doing everything with a smile on his face. Well, almost everything. Taking out the trash would take some of the wind out of his sails. But it wasn't the actual taking out the trash that put him off. He would always complete the task, but always very quickly, and he always seemed to return in a state of panic. When asked what was wrong, he said that whenever he took out the trash, he would see a dead woman in the yard crying out to him as though she were in a lot of pain. The sight always scared him half to death.
Yeah, that would put me off doing that duty too.
Other employees and visitors have reported hearing phantom music playing in the hallways. A couple of individuals have even reported seeing apparitions, a couple dancing swing style together. The dark silhouette of a man in fine clothing has been reported a few times, always walking straight towards the wall. Former facility director Judy Pitchford recalled having her fair share of paranormal experiences in the auditorium at the center. She could always sense a supernatural presence while she was in the large room, and she always seemed to stumble into random spots of the auditorium that never seemed to get as warm as the surrounding spaces. They always felt inexplicably cold and dark. Many employees in her service agreed to the point where they refused to take on any shifts that happened at night, but Judy would insist that the ghosts could not harm them. Or so everybody thought. Word about the haunted USO had spread, largely due to paranormal enthusiasts on social media. It even drew the attention of the Ghost Hunters TV show. But it was more the local group, the Southeast Paranormal Investigative Association, who spent the most time investigating there. Based on the evidence they gathered, they were very convinced that the building was in fact haunted, but they wanted more proof still. They received permission to open the doors of the USO as part of an experiment. Participants could tour the facility and then report their own paranormal experiences. Nobody was surprised by the number of people who claimed the USO was haunted. However, everyone was shocked by the degree to which the spirits made themselves known. Many of the stories from participants who toured the USO spoke of paranormal experiences, including running into phantom cobwebs while walking around, a sensation that many point to as the energy encountered by walking into a spirit. But some encounters took a startling and disturbing turn. Some participants started returning from their exploration with scratch marks on their bodies. One teenage girl said she and her friends heard the sound of a man coughing nearby. She then was scratched by an unseen hand along her neck. 2 other girls reported being scratched on their necks a few hours later. One participant described the sensation as though someone placed an icy hot packet along her back. After a few minutes, she started to get really itchy. She asked her sister to take a look, and her sister found a long scratch running vertical down her back. It seems that as welcoming as the USO is, and as much comfort as it did bring to so many service members, there may have been a few lingering spirits that did not care for the steady stream of new people that came through investigating the facility. Today, the building stands empty and silent, its future uncertain. We hope that it can be saved and restored to some level of use, but with the construction of the new USO on base, that may be a tall order. Time will tell what the future holds for this historic structure on Tallman Street in downtown Jacksonville and the spirits that have made themselves so comfortable there.
It sounded like it was a cool place to be.
Yeah, it really is quite the,
The facility.
Quite the facility, yeah. So if you look up Tallman Street in Jacksonville, North Carolina, it's a really short street. And so picking out what was the USO there is, pretty obvious which building it was. And looked like it, was quite the going concern, if you will.
Now this makes me want to watch White Christmas. Just saying. All right, so we're going to move our way over to the mountains in the community of Waynesville to one of the most well-known legends that you will find anywhere. It's the legend of Boojum and Hootin. In 1879, S.C. Satterwhite first came to the Waynesville from South Carolina. He came to visit the White Sulphur Springs Hotel, but it was on this trip that he met his soon-to-be wife, Hester Ann Smathers. They married in 1890, moved to Waynesville, and he opened a builder's depot and a lumber yard. A year later, he bought a 204-acre tract on Juskalana Mountain, now known as Eagle's Nest. In 1893, along with his brother-in-law, George Smathers, he bought 3 more tracts on the mountain and acquired a 25-foot right-of-way to build a road to the mountaintop. Various historical recollections say that a group of Cherokee natives were hired to build the road to the top of the mountain. When large rocks were encountered, they would build fires and pour water on the rock to create fractures before busting them up. It is said that the progress of the road could be measured by how high up the mountain of the fires were located. Whether this is true or not, the 5-mile road was finished, and by the start of the 1898 tourist season, it was open. Many newspaper articles from that year mentioned the road and its unsurpassed views. The road was known as the Graded Drive to Eagles View, or by others, the Junaluska Drive. Around 1899, Mr. Satterwhite decided that he was going to start construction on a 40-room hotel. It was to have 3 large stone chimneys, a dining room large enough to seat 100 guests, and a rooftop observatory. The hotel opened in July 24th of 1900, and it was handsomely furnished throughout. It attracted patrons from all over the country, especially during hay fever season, when the hotel advertised no hay fever at Eagle's Nest Hotel, and added no annoyance from children. Over 1,000 guests stayed at the hotel in the 1903 season. It became so popular that Mr. Satterwhite added 10 rooms and tents along the ridge. In a short time, Eagle's Nest became a staple of Waynesville's tourist industry. But with its great rise came a swift fall. Around 3 p.m. on April 22nd of 1918, people in town noticed smoke coming from the hotel's roof next to the observatory. Shortly thereafter, the hotel was completely engulfed in flames. 2,000 feet below, Waynesville was at a standstill as everybody watched the flames leap towards the sky, and great volumes of smoke pour from the tip of Mount Junaluska. Historian Bruce Briggs remembers his mother telling of the ashes falling in town. In the aftermath, the hotel was a total loss, and the cause was never identified. The building was empty at the time, and it had been 2 weeks since the servants had built a fire there. The structure was valued at $50,000 to $60,000 and only had 20,900 insurance coverage. The Satterwhites said they would not rebuild, but there was talks into the 1930s of rebuilding by other groups, though sufficient capital was never acquired. For nearly 20 years after the fire, the Junaluska Drive Road was only accessed by horseback and hiking. Automobiles had not been allowed, and by then the road had fallen into disrepair. But in 1937, business partners H.G. Stone and H.L. Linger acquired the rights and improved the road and opened the scenic Eagle's Nest Road. A toll booth was installed just above the Piedmont Inn with a toll of 50 cents per person in a car and 25 cents for pedestrians. The money collected was put back into improving the road. However, this was a failing venture. The toll only lasted until 1941, and after that the road became open for travel. Over time, Satterwhite Estate was sold off by the heirs, and the houses were built upon the majority of the lots. Riding to the top of the mountain, and the old hotel site is still remembered by many of the older locals. For anyone who made the trek up the mountain, it would readily be apparent why that spot was chosen for the hotel. The views of Waynesville and the surrounding mountains were unsurpassed. While walking along the ridge, it's not unusual to find evidence of the hotel that once stood there, like a fragment of fine porcelain, a scrap of metal from an old bed frame. The hotel's memory still lingers on here and in the modern day. Part of that memory revolves around a story of a strange creature that many of the hotel guests claim to encounter. The creature, well, it's become a renowned legend. The thing was not quite a man and not quite an animal. It stood about 8 feet tall, and every inch of its body was covered in shaggy gray hair, except for its human face. The creature was named Boojum, and he seemed to be harmless enough, but he did have two very human habits. The first was that Boojum was greedy. He loved to hoard gems. Rubies and emeralds were found naturally throughout the mountains in North Carolina, and Boojum loved to hunt for these pretty and precious stones, hide them away in his treasure hoards. Being thrifty mountain type, he would scoop up the discarded liquor jugs thrown away by the tourists and fill these with his gems. He would then bury them in one of his secret caves in the mountain that only he knew the whereabouts of. Boojum's other habit made him much more than man than animal, and that's because he liked to look at pretty girls. Back in those days, a young woman who wanted to have her bath might head off in the woods to find a secluded pond at the base of a waterfall. There, safe from human eyes, she could strip down to her naturalness and go about getting herself clean. But Boojum seemed to have some kind of sense about what was going on, and the young woman enjoying herself in the water would often hear rustling in the bushes and look up to see his hairy face peering down on her. Now, most of these girls would have quickly gathered their clothes up and run off back home as soon as they saw him. But one young woman named Annie was braver than most. And one day, when she was bathing in a stream deep in the balsam groves of Eagle's Nest, she looked up and saw Boojum staring down at her. Annie didn't run. In fact, she looked up into Boojum's sorrowful eyes and saw that above all else, he was just another lonely soul living on the mountain. Annie fell in love with those sad eyes, and she fell in love with Boojum. And as she left her home and her family to go live with him deep in the mountain in the woods as his wife. As much as Boojum loved Annie, and as much as Annie loved Boojum, Boojum still hung on to his love for jewels. On certain nights, he would leave his bride alone and go searching for jewels in the mountain. Annie, growing lonely, would go out in search of Boojum. And she developed a peculiar holler, something that sounded like a cross between a monkey and a hooting owl, and that she would use this to call out to Boojum. Boojum would use the same cry to call back to her, and eventually the two calls would come closer together until they came together on the hills. Annie and Boojum calling to each other is often heard by the guests at Eagle's Nest Hotel. Folklorist John Paris said that Annie's owl-like holler was the source of the term Hootin' Annie. which appeared to be the language about the turn of the 20th century and meant any kind of party or get-together. It was in the 1960s that the term was introduced into a wider public eye by Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie, that it came to mean specifically the gathering of folk musicians. That Annie's approach to encountering the giant shaggy beast was to marry him is a testament to well-known friendliness of North Carolinians. It may be that Annie and Boojum had children. Occasionally, even to this day, a shaggy ape-like creature is seen in the balsam groves of Haywood County.
Now you know about Hootin Annie.
Yep. I had to throw a cryptid in there.
Good, why not? It's still spooky stuff.
It is. And it's a fun, this is where this language came from.
Yep. So our next stop, not too far away, is going to be the town of Hot Springs, the little town nestled deep in the Blue Ridge, just a little north of Asheville. The town gets its name from the natural hot springs that bubble up through the ground in the area. It was these waters that brought tourists to hot springs throughout the 19th century. The springs were believed to have natural healing properties, and tourists seeking relief from various ailments or just a pleasant way to relax came to the town in droves. The sense of calm and relaxation seems to have spread from those springs throughout the entire town, giving Hot Springs a mild and somewhat otherworldly aura, as if it's a step out of time. Perhaps it's something about this aura that is working to keep Hot Springs from getting too big. Over the years, 2 grand hotels have been built near the springs, both of which came to ruin. Patton's White House, which was built back in 1837, had 350 rooms and a dining room that could seat 600. The hotel also boasted the largest ballroom in North Carolina and was a destination for the well-to-do tourist until it burned to the ground in the middle of the century. Its successor, the Mountain Park Inn, was built in 1886 and was even grander. This 200-room hotel with a 9-hole golf course and 16 marble baths fed by the springs, but the Mountain Park Inn also burned to the ground in 1920. The warm waters flowing from the earth were sacred to the Cherokee, and a few miles down the river is the important Cherokee religious site of Paint Rock. Ever since the 19th century, people have reported seeing the figure of a Cherokee man walking in the woods near the river and springs. The hot springs are once again open for business, only now on a much smaller scale than the grand hotels of the past. The water flowing from the springs is pumped into a series of sheltered hot tubs along the banks of the French Broad River. It's said that the ghost of the Cherokee keeps his eyes on these, and a number of surprised soakers have even reported the ghost slipping into the tub next to them. Is there some remnant of energy from when Hot Springs was Cherokee sacred ground that's keeping the development in check? Today, Hot Springs is a magnet for artists and spiritual seekers, all of whom seem to agree there is something unique about the feeling of the town. The town is also, once again, a booming tourist attraction and starting to grow. Maybe something will let us know if it gets too big. It neighbors Paint Rock, also known for its Native American hauntings, speaking of which...
We're going to pop over there. So for Painted Rock, whether you are a believer in all things paranormal or simply a history buff, you'll want to pay a visit to this haunted rock cliff in North Carolina. It's nestled along Deep Horseshoe Bend in the French Broad River. And there's an enormous rock cliff there that's splintered in all directions. That is known as Paint Rock. And this is more than 100-foot tall rock cliff that contains ancient pictographs believed to be as much as 5,000 years old. I still want to know how they got them up there. Because it ain't easy. But finding Paint Rock is another story. The historical marker is 5.5 miles away from the site of the Painted Rock Road, just south of the Tennessee border.
Bless you.
Thank you. For those in search of pictographs, good luck. The Paint Rock is 3 times as long as it is tall, and it technically has more than one side. Moreover, photos of the pictographs are hard to obtain because the symbols are just simply hard to find on such a large surface. Most accounts place them high up on the rock face, so you're going to probably need a drone to get up there. The history of this location and its importance to the Native Americans that once inhabited the area, combined with the likely confrontations that occur with the settlers, could be part of the reason why this spot has so many paranormal vibes. Plus, there's the ghost lore circulating about Paint Rock, and it's a it's with the two water channels, Painted Rock Creek and the French Broad River. Legend has it, in days gone by, Phoenix maidens would lure men to the waters along Paint Rock to drown them. Yes, we are talking sirens, ladies and gentlemen. They're just not Greek myths. They're Native American as well. So the legend tells that men will go camping near this area, waking up to the sound of a beautiful singing, and they follow the siren song and find themselves looking at the reflection of a beautiful Cherokee woman in the water. They feel compelled to reach for the woman, but as they do, some unknown creature pulls them into the water and drowns them. Now, hikers and campers are very careful to not stray too close to the water by this area for fear of meeting the same fate. On a somewhat less insidious note, some people, especially those who are keenly empathetic, get weird vibes when they're visiting this area. Others hear disembodied voices or see odd apparitions in the area. As long as you exercise some caution, this area is a delightful place for you to go and visit and explore nature and the paranormal. We have a question? Comment?
Patrick's here.
Hey, Patrick. Now, the next place we're going, Chris and I have actually been to twice or 3 times?
I think it's three times now. Yep.
Yeah, because we did Downton Abbey, we did Christmas,
and then
we did the initial one.
Yeah, which was really a business trip for me that you tagged along on. So,
oh, darn, I had to go play at Biltmore while he was working.
Actually, you didn't, because we didn't realize just how far the Biltmore...
No, but I played in the original Workers' Village.
Yes, you went to the Workers' Village. Yeah. Any case, yes. Oh, and we do have Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie.
Hey, Stephanie. But just so y'all know, Biltmore was affected by the flooding that happened with Helene, and they actually just announced that the Asheville water filtration system is up and running again in the city, so they're going to be able to get off of their own wells on property and get back onto the city water.
Slowly but surely getting back on their feet.
Yep.
So...
They are open.
Yes. The estate reopened, a couple of weeks after Helene?
Yeah.
And obviously there's been a lot more work to do, but
yeah, they are back open, and they are doing the Christmas decorations, so that's up and running.
Yep. But Asheville's, and all the other surrounding communities are pulling together.
Yeah.
They just got a long road to recovery. So if these stories do catch your interest and you're interested in visiting, make sure you do
thorough research on how to get there and what's open and what's not.
Yeah. So it's going to take some time for some of these places.
But,
I know, is it I-40?
Yeah.
There's a stretch that I-40 is expected to be closed for at least a year and a half.
Yeah, well, they have to rebuild what washed away.
Section that's not there anymore.
So
yeah. But yeah, they got hit really hard down there, but they're slowly working on getting back together.
But I was very happy to hear that they have the water filtration system up and running, so the town has water now.
That's kind of a big deal.
That is a big deal.
Yeah.
So,
but yes. So, Biltmore Estate, on the spooky side of things. So this grand home was originally built to be a vacation home for George Washington Vanderbilt, one of the heirs to the Vanderbilt industrial fortune. A vacation home.
Vacation home. The thing is gigantic.
It's the largest privately owned residence in the United States.
Yeah.
It's astounding.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, and it was just a vacation home.
Just a vacation.
So, anyways, George Washington Vanderbilt was fortunate enough to have been born into a life that offered him staggeringly vast amounts of money that he didn't have to lift a single finger to earn. In 1886, he traveled to Asheville with his mother and subsequently fell in love with the mountains and the town. He decided that he would build a vacation home there and subsequently purchased 125,000 acres.
For a vacation home.
Just a little place to get away to.
I mean, self-sufficient.
Yeah, yes. Now, Vanderbilt would eventually spend a significant part of his inheritance constructing the estate, including building out a private railway line to bring his family and guests to the grounds, which were originally far outside the bounds of Asheville. Today, the estate remains impressive, and the house remains the largest privately owned home in America. Now open to the public, the house and surrounding estate, the winery, and the related attractions make Biltmore one of the biggest tourist destinations in North Carolina. The gorgeous home and its surrounding gardens are a treat for the eyes, but some visitors to the Biltmore house have seen even stranger things. In addition to his architectural passions, George Vanderbilt was an avid collector of books, art, and artifacts. He and his wife Edith turned Biltmore into a private museum of luxury and would host lavish parties and entertain guests over extended stays. When he died in 1914, his estate passed through his daughter to his grandsons, and it was they who decided to open the estate to the public. Ever since then, there have been rumors that the founders of the estate may still be lingering about. During his lifetime, Vanderbilt was particularly proud of his library and would spend a considerable amount of time there poring over the rare editions.
I gotta agree with them. That library is phenomenal. I would live in it.
Jaw-dropping.
Just saying.
Yeah. Now, it was Vanderbilt's particular habit to retreat to the library when he saw a storm approaching. His ghost may be continuing this habit, as workers and visitors to the estate are said to have seen a shadowy figure in the library, usually when the skies are dark and there's an oncoming storm. George Vanderbilt may also not be the only member of his family keeping up old habits. Edith Vanderbilt was known to personally journey down to the library to remind her husband when it was time to join his guests. Today, many people passing through the library have reported hearing a woman's voice whisper the name George. She may be summoning George away from his studies and back to what seems to be an eternal party. Workers and visitors have reported hearing the sounds of clinking glasses, laughter, and snatches of music echoing through the halls. There have even been reports of the sounds of splashing and laughing coming from the estate's now empty swimming pool. This seems appropriate given that Edith Vanderbilt was well known for hosting amazing pool parties. If the Vanderbilts are indeed continuing their lavish existence into the afterlife, it may be evidence that while you may not be able to take it with you, you also don't necessarily need to leave it all behind.
I will say, when I'm in the library, my eye is always drawn to the second floor, because it's a 2-level library with a spiral staircase going up. And I always feel like somebody's up there watching whoever's in the library.
And yeah, Patrick, it's hard to wrap your mind around the scale of the place unless you actually go to see it.
Yeah.
It's just...
I mean, the pictures are gorgeous, but when you actually walk up to it, you're like, oh, this is so much bigger.
Yeah. You say you'd live in the library. I think I would have a hard time peeling myself out of the conservatory. Ugh.
But luckily, they're right next to each other, so you just grab a book from one and go into the other. Yeah, but the conservatory is fantastic, and there's a lovely veranda that you can go right off of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that's what you walk into, and that's the first thing you see are those 3 rooms.
Yeah, and amazing staircases, and it's everything there is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you've never checked it out, strongly recommend a visit.
Yes. All right, this is another one I've actually been in. This is the Duke Mansion, which, of course, was another one that maybe tried to match the splendor of the Biltmore estate. Didn't quite get there. They didn't have the same amount of money. But I digress. So we're moving to Charlotte, North Carolina, and in 1915, a gentleman by the name of Zebulon Taylor visited the emerging suburb of Myers Park in Charlotte and decided he was going to purchase some property. Myers Park was considered an up-and-coming neighborhood thanks to the invention of the streetcar. Mr. Taylor built a house on the property and called it Linwood Mansion. At the time, Mr. Taylor was president of Southern Public Utilities, which still exists today, but is now called Duke Energy. It would be the home's second owner that would actually give it its current name, however, James Buchanan Duke. Duke sought out a property to continue growing his hydroelectric business, and he wanted to introduce his daughter Doris into Southern society. Thus, he purchased Linwood in 1919 and decided to expand the home. He added an additional 32,000 square feet to the property, tripling the mansion's size. The original Linwood estate makes up the east wing of the present-day mansion, and Duke utilized the property to its fullest extent. And Duke University and Duke Energy were amongst the ideas that he developed while living on this property. After Duke passed away in 1925, the property would change hands a few times, and in the decades that followed, and narrowly survived a few calamities of let's just say, something that could have made it get torn to the ground. It avoided those. By the mid-1990s, it became clear that the property was needed some continuous upkeep. In order to preserve its historical beauty, a nonprofit organization was starting to oversee the care of the property. The house became a bed and breakfast, and all the proceeds went directly back into maintaining the elegant rooms, the lush gardens. Numerous charity events were also held at the mansion, as well as private events and lush weddings. The Duke Mansion continues to be a cherished part of Charlotte's history. I actually worked a wedding there.
Did you?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yep. I cocktail waitressed at a wedding there. Just how I visited it and learned the ins and outs of the back part of the mansion.
Okay.
Yeah.
I learned something new about my wife.
This is what I did when I was at home from college breaks.
I knew you did that. I just didn't know you
I did one here.
Yeah.
Well, the Duke Mansion is well known and beloved within the community. Something that is not talked about as much is the hauntings of the property. It is believed that one of the series of owners after Mr. Duke was there a short period of time, and when it was owned by a gentleman by the name of John Avery. Mr. Avery was no stranger to tragedy. When he lived at the mansion, his mother and sister lived with him to help take care of the property and to look after John. Mr. Avery's wife had some severe mental health issues and was living in an institute at the time. All right. One day, a young lady contacted Mr. Avery. She was a writer and wished to write a piece on the historic property. Mr. Avery agreed to meet with her and provided her with a tour of the grounds. Mr. Avery and the young lady were instantly attracted to each other and spent several hours talking while walking around the mansion. The two struck up a quick friendship. Over time, it became clear that their feelings for each other were more than platonic. Mr. Avery fell in love with the vibrant woman, however, he could not abandon his sick wife. When the lady realized that they would never be together in any legal capacity, she told him they had to terminate their romance. Mr. Avery was utterly devastated, and he convinced the young lady to meet him one last time, in the gardens on the property. During this clandestine meeting, he spoke of his earnest love for her, and he persuaded her to meet him another time, 1 year later, in the same location within the garden. He made her promise that she would show up, whether dead or alive. A year came and went, and by the time the young lady had become engaged to another man and was happy with her choice. However, she wanted to honor the promise she had made to Mr. Avery. She asked her roommate to accompany her to act as a chaperone. The roommate agreed, but elected to stay several feet away so not to encroach on their privacy. Minutes passed, and the young lady began to worry that Mr. Avery would not show up at midnight as he had promised. Just as she elected to leave, she heard footsteps approaching from the house. Mr. Avery appeared, clad in dark, formal clothes, and slowly made his way to meet her in the garden. She reached out to touch his arm, and Mr. Avery turned to her and spoke. The lady watched his lips move, but did not hear the voice out loud, only in her head. Mr. Avery said, "Dead or alive," before he continued walking past. Little did the lady know that at the time Mr. Avery had died a few days prior to this meeting. Many people tended him at his bedside, where he continuously wondered out loud if he would be well enough to honor the meeting. It would seem that love he had for the woman outweighed his desire to depart from this world after death. So he honored his agreement, dead or alive.
Another one of those sweet stories, but
Oh. But again, I mean, when I was there, I didn't sense anything.
Mm.
So this is one of those unfinished business stories.
Yeah.
Where he did what he needed to do and hopefully moved on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But we're not done with the fine houses of North Carolina yet. This time we're heading over to Raleigh, where we find the Mordecai House. It is one of the city's finest historic buildings, with the original portion dating back to around 1785. The home was built by Joel Lane for his son Henry. Joel Lane was one of the instrumental figures in the establishment of Raleigh as the first planned state capital in the United States, basically meaning that they actually founded the city of Raleigh to be the state capital of North Carolina. Yeah. So, if you're wondering,
whereas Richmond was not
a planned capital. Yeah. Richmond existed, and then they moved the capital here.
Yeah.
Raleigh there was nothing until there might have been something there, but
it was not what it is today.
Not even close.
Yeah.
But we digress. So, Mordecai House acquired its name when Moses Mordecai married into the Lane family in 1817. Mordecai not only married into the Lane family, he married into the family twice. When his first wife, Margaret Lane, died in 1824, he married her younger sister, Anne.
Which was actually pretty typical.
Very typical going back through history. So before you think ooh, that's questionable, that
was actually quite
common. Anyways, Moses Mordecai was a member of one of the most prominent and fascinating Ashkenazi Jewish families in early American history. His father, Jacob Mordecai, was the first director of the female seminary in Warrenton, North Carolina. This seminary provided a multi-faith teaching environment for young ladies of the town. Moses Mordecai's older sister, Rachel Mordecai Lazarus, was an intellectually gifted woman that was prominent in the early feminist movement and the Reform movement in American Judaism. Moses' son Henry played an important role in Raleigh's Jewish history, donating a portion of the Mordecai lands to found the first Jewish cemetery in Raleigh. The descendants of Moses Mordecai inhabited the house for another 5 generations, until the house was willed to the city in 1964. It's now part of a public park. The ghost that inhabits the house is said to be the spirit of Mary Willis Mordecai Turk, who lived from 1858 to 1937. She appears sporadically as an apparition in gray 19th century dress on the home's grand balcony. She can occasionally be heard playing the piano in the downstairs drawing room, and visitors to the house have occasionally seen a gray mist hovering near that piano. Mary has also been observed traversing the stairwell. There's a photo of Mary in the home that she turns over to face the wall. Perhaps she just never liked that photo. So, the ghost sees the picture of Mary, believing the ghost to be Mary. Photo turns around to face the wall. I had to run that through my head a couple of times before I understood exactly what I was saying. So, but yeah, there was a question. For regards to the last story, Patrick said that a couple of friends that he has, he's told I would come visit them after he died before his funeral. So, okay.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Yeah.
I will say,
people know first.
I don't think I'm going to give up after my funeral.
No, I'm going to pop in and see you quite often.
Yep. There will be some hauntings going on.
It is in our contract.
Yep. But, little side note, from Alex, favorite Thanksgiving food? Since Thanksgiving will be before our next episode.
That's going to be a toss-up between potato filling and my cranberry combo.
They're both so good. And I have a hard time deciding.
I just like Thanksgiving in general.
Yeah, it's so good. I'm one, I love post Thanksgiving leftovers, where you can take a whole bunch of those different ingredients and make paninis out of them.
Yeah, we do make a lot of paninis. We need to go get some tomato bread.
Yes, that's right. Tomato basil bread from Panera Bread.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, get it sliced, and it makes fantastic panini.
It's turkey, the cranberry compote, and usually provolone we use.
Yeah, we use provolone. And then if you have room, you can also just throw in other leftovers as well. You got stuffing.
Yeah.
You can put some stuffing in there. You can put green bean casserole in there. You can put mashed potatoes in there. whatever it's Thanksgiving in every bite, and it's so good.
All right, I need you to take little boy because my hips need to move.
Okay. Hey, buddy.
I'm so sorry, sir, but
he's like, no.
oh, he is like nestled in there, and I need to move my hips. He likes to try to return to a womb that is not his.
Yeah, and that's before you even get to the desserts. Oh, pie.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, we're getting pie for free this year, so.
We're getting a pie for free.
I wasn't planning on making a pumpkin unless you want me to, because I've not bought those
We
supplies.
don't need to make one. We're going to get a big
cup pie.
pecan or pecan.
It's a nut pie.
It's yes. I'm not. We're not starting that debate right now.
I have the whipped cream to go on it.
But yes, either way, it's going to be tasty. It's all going to be tasty.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going to go back to the great outdoors. Brown Mountain is a low ridge in Burke County that, during a dry, crisp evening in the autumn, it is host to a great. Oh, sorry, I've been up since 5:30. Genuine mystery. That when the conditions are right, mysterious glowing orbs can be seen rise up off the mountain, hover and wobble about 15 feet in the air, and then disappear. Reported first by the Cherokee and the Chippewa native tribes, they were also witnessed by Civil War soldiers, and the sightings have just continued into the modern day.
He's like, I'm not giving up.
He wants a lap, so you need to give him a lap.
There. Alex has never heard of potato filling.
I will explain after the story. All right. I lost my place. There it is. Mysterious lights have been studied by the U.S. government and Appalachia State University, but no conclusions have been made. They have been photographed many times. Multiple legends have arisen around the Brown Mountain Light phenomenon, and some accounts claim that the lights were the souls of the Cherokee women searching for their men who had died in a great battle between the Cherokee and the Choctaw that took place on Brown Mountain. Another legend says that the lights are ghostly echoes of lights that appeared during the search for a murdered woman in the 19th century. But what was once the most widely known legend was recorded in song in the 1950s by the duo known as the Sweethearts of Country Music. Scott Wiseman and Myrtle Eleanor Cooper were both native North Carolinians, and they recorded their music under the names of Lulu Bell and Scotty from the 1920s to the 1950s. The song Brown Mountain Light, penned by Wiseman, tells a version of the story where a man accompanied by an enslaved person becomes lost while hunting on the mountain. The man is never found, and the enslaved person returns to the mountain every night with a lantern to hunt for him, carrying on his search even from beyond the grave. Wiseman, who is from nearby Boone, said this version of the story is the one that he heard from his uncle, who took him hunting and camping near Brown Mountain. The song rose to the top of the country charts and subsequently became the best-known version of the legend for a generation.
Let us emphasize this next part.
Yeah.
So the story, it's legend, and this is the story that's been passed on for generations. There's
no factual detail.
There's no factual detail to it, and also it is just an egregious example of the whole romanticizing the idea of
a faithful slave servant.
Of a faithful enslaved servant. It's like, it's not a cool story in any way, shape, or form.
No, I mean, the legend, it's quite dated. It's particularly in regard to the romanticizing of slavery. And it's easy to imagine the retelling of the story where the lights are actually from people looking for the slave who, when he realizes he's alone on the mountain, takes his chance and hightails it to Ohio for freedom. I would much prefer that story.
It's definitely the more realistic
likely
one.
Yeah. As far as the lights themselves, the different possible scientific explanations have been offered. Swamp gas, reflections of automobile lights. Those are two that are often the first ones tested and theory-wise. But it is disproved. The lights are observed before automobiles existed, so that debunks that.
Takes that right out.
There's no swamp anywhere in this area, so no swamp gas. Immediately debunked. Some theorize that the lights may be naturally occurring electrical discharges caused by slow movement of the geofault that is located below the mountain.
It's a stretch.
It's a stretch. Hasn't been disproved yet, but it's a stretch.
If that was really a thing, basically California would be
gone,
lit up like a Christmas tree all year around from all the fault activity going on underneath there.
Plus, Virginia would have one of those too because we've been active fairly.
Yeah, a little bit.
Not as active as California.
No.
All right, whatever is the cause, people will still flock to the Brown Mountain Lights, and spotting them is never guaranteed, but your best chance is on a dry, clear night in October or November, so now's the time to do it, right after all the leaves have fallen off the trees. The best viewing spots are on Wiseman's View or Brown Mountain Overlook to catch the light yourself. Patrick, this one's for you.
Yes. Moving along. One of the most frightening apparitions in all of North Carolina's hauntings comes from the quiet mountain town of Valle Crucis. This small town takes its name, which is Latin for Valley of the Cross, from the two streams which meet at right angles in the middle of the valley. The morning mist lingers longer in the Valley of the Cross than anywhere else in the mountains, and even on sunny days, the town has a quietness to it that seems to set it apart from the rest of the world. But it's at night that the supernatural side of Valle Crucis reveals itself. There's an old stone church located along Highway 194 just on the edge of town, where among the leaning graves in the churchyard cemetery, something unworldly steps in and out of the shadows. On a clear night with a full moon, two young men were driving along this road around midnight. The valley was bathed in an eerie moonlit glow. As their car turned a corner passing the old church, the two young men saw a shadow leap out from behind one of the graves and into the road in front of them. Swerving to avoid whatever had landed in the road, the driver slammed his foot on the brake and pulled off to one side of the narrow road. Wondering what he had hit, he craned his head around over his shoulder to see what was in the road. It was a dog, but not an ordinary dog. This dog was as tall and as wide as a full-grown man, covered with bristling black fur and bearing its massive yellow teeth. And the animal's eyes were glowing. Not reflecting light like a dog's eyes will do, but actually glowing, burning with a smoldering red light. The one young man turned to the other and asked, "Did you see that?" His friend replied, "No, and neither did you."
We're not going to talk about this.
The animal began to walk towards their car. By mutual and unspoken agreement, the driver lifted his foot off the brake and slammed it down on the accelerator. They roared off down the mountain road, taking the hairpin turns and twists of the road at 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. It was only when the driver looked in the rearview mirror that he realized the dog was still following them, and even gaining ground. Panicked and expecting the jaws of the dog to wrap around the bumper of the car and drag it into hell, the driver gave one final push on the accelerator, and just as the beast was about to catch them, the car leapt over the bridge just below where the streams meet and across. And the dog stopped following them. They watched it fade into the distance and wondered what supernatural law it was that the animal was obliged to obey that kept its territory limited by the boundaries of the water. The two young men drove into Boone and went to the local Waffle House.
Because that's, of course, what you're going to do.
It was the only place around that was open 24 hours, and they both knew that neither one was going to get any sleep that night.
Yeah, this reminds me so much of, like, Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman, that once he gets over the bridge, he's safe. So.
Yes. And Patrick wants to pet it so badly.
And to answer your question, potato filling is a Pennsylvania Dutch mashed potato recipe. So it's mashed potatoes with caramelized onion, milk bread, parsley.
An egg.
And then it's rebaked a second time in the oven.
Yeah.
And it's so flavorful. And when you pour that turkey gravy on top of it, oh my God, it's a volcano of yummy goodiness.
It's basically mashed potatoes taken up a couple notches.
Yeah. But it's a family recipe, and I have to have it every Thanksgiving.
Yeah. So yeah, and of course it was a Waffle House in Boone, North Carolina. There isn't much else in Boone. No, there's not.
Especially not over 24 hours.
No.
I wonder if that Waffle House is even still open, because
so
many of them had to close.
Waffle House sounds good right now.
No. We're doing pizza. Not tonight, but probably tomorrow. Or not tomorrow. The next day. Because you already craved pizza, so we're going to get that after we're done with the soup I made today.
I just go after you go to bed.
All right, well, I'm going to let you take this last one because my voice is unreliable.
And no, I'm not actually going to go to Waffle House after you go to bed. But anyways, we digress. One final stop for the evening. This place is it's called Seven Hearths. It's a beautiful historic home located on King Street in the historic district of Hillsborough. The house dates from sometime in the earlier half of the 18th century. The site was originally built as a tavern, William Reed's Ordinary. This tavern distilled and served spirits to the public from colonial times into the early days of the Republic. The tavern shut down sometime before the beginning of the 19th century, when the house became a private residence and began being called Seven Hearths. According to legend, it was also sometime in the 19th century that the house acquired its first ghost. According to a family tradition, the ghost of a girl named Jane Hayes haunts the property. The Hayes family lived in the home from the early 19th century into the middle of the 20th. Jane was a beloved daughter who died of consumption in the home in 1854, when she was only 16 years old. Ever since then, residents in the house have reported seeing the transparent figure of a girl with the long, flowing blonde hair wearing a wispy nightgown, wandering from room to room. Passers-by on the street have also reported seeing the figure of a young girl staring out of an upstairs window. The second ghost is a much older and odder apparition, said to be another member of the Hayes family, this one a Dr. William Hayes, who practiced out of the building in the 1920s. William Hayes was a devout spiritualist who believed that humans were reincarnated as animals after death. Hayes seems to have gotten halfway there, as his spirit has been seen roaming the halls of Seven Hearths in the form of a large tabby cat with the head of a man.
No. I draw the line there. I will take ghost cats all day long. I'll take live cats all day long. We're not putting a sphinx in there.
No. Now, when they sold the house, the Hayes family let the new owners know about the ghosts. Both apparitions kept appearing occasionally to the new residents for decades, and came to be thought of as members of a slightly odd extended family. Seven Hearths has recently changed hands again, and the new owners have lovingly restored the exterior of the home to something closer to what it looked like when it was William Reed's Ordinary. While the new owners haven't yet said whether or not they've seen the ghosts, they have done a wonderful job capturing the spirit of this lovely historic building. Yes, Patrick, I'm just as incredulous about that too. Tabby cat with the head of a man.
Nope, that's a nope.
I had to read that a few times, like, okay. That's what they say, we're going to roll with it.
Solid nope.
And we found something Patrick does not want to pet.
Oh boy. Yay.
Pure nightmare fuel.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like thinking my worst anime nightmare come to life.
Yeah, that's a lot. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hope you enjoyed our stories from our neighbors to the south in North Carolina.
Yes, so the next one is going to be the first Monday in December.
Yep, so it's 2 weeks from today. The 2nd of December.
And it's going to be Haunted Germany.
Haunted Germany because, well...
German markets.
Yes.
Christmas markets. And a favorite sidekick of Santa is going to be talked about.
Yep.
Because that is right around his day.
Yes. So, yeah, lots of spooky stuff to talk about in that country, the old world. But yeah, so until then, thank you so much for watching. Quick reminder again, upcoming events.
Pub crawl
Thursday. The bar crawl of Carytown featuring Revelair, the Bryant's and Garden Grove. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Tickets are available on the website, hauntsofrichmond.com. Also, this Saturday, we are not only going to be at Virginia Comic-Con up at the Raceway Complex again, we are also going to be doing the Ghosts of the John Marshall House tour with our friends from the John Marshall House then Saturday night.
So 7 and 8 o'clock.
Yep, so you can go sign up for that. And then next month, Friday the 13th, we have our haunted dinner at Patrick Henry's Pub and Grill, where the theme will be ghost stories of the Christmas season. So not just ghost stories from Richmond. As a matter of fact, I don't think any of them are really going to be from Richmond. But still, it's
ghost stories that happen right around the Christmas time.
Yep.
With the Christmas theme.
Yep. So got some gonna be enjoying that. And yeah, hope that you enjoyed. This was a fun episode. I really like the stories in this one.
Yeah, I think I like some of the ones I have in the next one too.
Yeah, I mean, we like all of our episodes, but some of them really shine. This was one of the shining ones, if you ask me.
So, all right, we'll catch you all later.
Yep. I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving, because we probably will not be chatting with you again before that, unless you come on out and join us at one of these events or on one of our regular tours, because the regular tours are still rolling along as well. So you can come out on those. And one final thing, don't, if you missed out on the Haunted Segway tours, might not really, not going to be done with those quite yet. Yeah. Keep an eye on, we're working on getting some more dates for those on the calendar, but it's still pending. So all kinds of fun stuff coming up. Stay spooky, y'all, and have a good night.
Cheers.